Hi, everybody. This is Beth Hilton, and I am back with another wonderful interview with Samir Bodhi this week. Hi, Samir.
Hi, Beth. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you for being here and talking to us about your new CD, Memories of Empathy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I understand that it has just dropped. And in that process, you reached #1 on Amazon New Release in New Age. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think that was a similar situation that you had with your last CD, which we loved, Stairway to Nirvana.
Yeah, so we just released Memories of Empathy last Friday, July 14th. And that week, for many days, it hit #1 on Amazon presale. And as you said, my earlier album, Stairway to Nirvana, also was #1 on Amazon presales. It's good that we made it up there.
Yeah, very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, both of these albums have a lot of thought and feeling and spirituality behind them. And both of them get into fusion between East and West. And perhaps this one, even a little bit more so. Do you want to tell us about that?
Sure. So the idea of Memories of Empathy emerged during the pandemic, actually. And one of the things I've been noticing in the US, but not just here, across the world, is that there's a growing division between people who have and people who don't have, right? Even in one of the most wealthiest cities in Los Angeles, we see so much of homelessness, right? And these are difficult problems to solve. But I felt that one thing that can help is empathy, because if we put ourselves in their shoes, try to understand the situation, what led them to be in that place, I think we could probably do better and help them, right? So this division, if it is unchecked, then that probably would lead to societal unrest, crisis. And I feel like all of us should look back into our empathy and see how we can be involved and help them. And, the reason I call it memories is because I feel like there used to be a time when we all cared about our neighbors. These days, we don't even know who our neighbors are, right? So it is like a distant memory. Those days were good days when we all cared about each other. Now we don't. We're all running our rat race. And we should pause, we should stop and, feel how people are doing. And it's a beautiful emotion. And I think it's something that is needed. And I'm seeing this across the world, not just in the US, everywhere else.
Right, because I do know you travel a lot. You are a professor in life as well at Claremont and have a very esteemed position where you get to go and speak across the world. So I know just this year, I've seen that you were in South Africa and India and parts of Europe. So I know that, you are watching and you're seeing this wherever you go.
Yeah, I mean, I am really privileged that my day job as a professor, as an academic, brings me opportunity to, talk about my research and travel all over the world. First time this year, I actually visited South Africa. And it was a really good experience. There are fantastic infrastructures and good things, but then there are vast slums over there. People were saying that after evening, it's not safe to drive or be there alone, and don't take an Uber and all that. I even saw that there were, load shedding or power failures happening for extensive periods of time, even during the conference. But they're very used to it because the backup generators came on. So I think that talking about India, I think, when you have a billion plus population, all are trying to survive, usually you won't find much of empathy. And I always felt that empathy is more true in the Western world. However, things are a little bit changing. I think there are a lot of good NGOs, non-governmental organizations that are doing philanthropic work back in India. And they are all, very empathetic people. They're helping people there. And there is now a consciousness growing in India that we need to take care of our friends and neighbors, things like that. On the other hand, in the West, where I always felt, US has been the biggest giver to the needy all over the world. But in the last couple of years, the climate is different. People in Los Angeles don't care about the homeless people. To them, it's a nuisance. It's like, eyesore. But instead of figuring out, why they ended up being there. Because I know of even pretty good, decent families, somebody unfortunately lost their job and now they're on the streets. So I think we need to be more empathetic about those kind of situations.
Right. Well, it's appropriate that we came in on the song that you have named Indifference.
Mhm.
And we heard that at the beginning of the show. After the pandemic and many of the other struggles, the recognition of homelessness and inequality throughout LA and other parts of the country, of course, there is a lot of indifference because I think there's also a lot of loss of hope and belief that our cities and states are not capable of fixing the situation. And therefore, you get a lot of people saying, not in my backyard, I don't want to have the homeless here, but I don't know what to do with them or where to go with them. It's become a political issue, of course, it always is. And yet I echo what you say. There are a lot of organizations. I know of some churches in Los Angeles who do an incredible job with helping the unhoused people with food, and even people who are just in need, who don't have to, quote, prove that they're unhoused, who can come and pick up groceries once a week at the church, or can apply to get into some of the tiny villages that some of the folks here are building. And I think there are now 7 tiny villages that have been built. And so that's coming out of a person who, just did not give up and kept pushing through the city's barriers to that kind of a thing and got it done.
There are some amazing people who are doing some amazing work in that space. But, one thing I wanted to bring up was, when I first heard about the governor of Texas and governor of Florida putting illegal immigrants in buses and shipping them to California, that itself speaks to me like there's no empathy. These are people who are struggling. I understand that there has to be a border check. I understand that you cannot have millions of people walk in, but these people are already here, and this is a very wealthy country. Mm-hmm. And if instead of providing some food and shelter, all these governors were doing is like, okay, California is a sanctuary state, so let's send them there. I don't think that is the solution. Talking about, empathy and what I have been doing, it's very interesting to me because when you're in social media, you get approached and contacted by a lot of people. And I've been regularly approached by folks from US and from India. And whenever possible, I send money because they are not close by, so I cannot physically go there. And that's one way I've been kind of trying to, because during the pandemic, especially, there was a lot of people who were needy, who did not have the earnings. So I was donating as much as possible that I could.
Yeah, that's true. Empathy comes in many forms, and it's a neighbor, right, to compassion. Compassion is there too.
And there's another perspective that I'll share, which actually kind of connects to my technology work as a scientist. So I do a lot of work in design and designing technology. And in that world, there is a thing which is popularly called design thinking, and it emerged from Stanford. And it's a 5-step process for designing any product or any artifact. And the very first step is empathy, because companies say that, let's say you are going to design a toothbrush for someone. You really need to understand what problem that person is having when they're brushing. And in order to understand that, you have to have empathy. And then you have a better grasp of the problem, and then you formulate a, idea solution. Then you test it, you evaluate it, see if it is efficient, whether it's working, if there's utility to be provided. So I think even when we come to high-tech product design, like I do a lot of work in healthcare research, and when we're designing new technologies, we consistently see these technologies fail to be adopted. And one of the primary reasons is that the customer, in this case, patient, have not been consulted. And the design team never bothered to understand what exactly are the pain points of the patient.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if you are designing a new diabetes tool, and it hurts to pinch the blood, right? Nobody wants to do that every day. So you're thinking outside the box, you're thinking something novel, but you still cannot do that unless you talk to them, because you might have zillion ideas. Which one will they like? Which one will they prefer? So it's all about empathy, understanding the customer base. So that's what I teach in my research. And I kind of felt nice that this is also linking to my music.
Well, that's fascinating. So the benefits of developing your empathy are not just that it's good for society, but it's also a positive life skill that can enhance your own work.
Correct. Yeah, it's very true.
Brilliant. Well, let's talk about the next song that we're going to listen to. And we chose Affinity to go to next. So tell us a little bit about that. And while you do so, I'm going to show off the CD to our online viewers. And it is a beautiful, you can see it in my backdrop here too. It's a beautiful CD. I'm trying to get into the camera. There we go. Yeah.
Okay. That looks nice. Yeah. So Affinity is really a very special track. It is the foundation of the song is based on an Indian classical rag called Rag Kirwani. Believe it or not, Rag Kirwani resembles very closely with Fur Elise, a very famous Beethoven composition. So I took Rag Kirwani, and of course there's a lot of Western fusion in it. But instead of any particular vocal words, my wife Meeta and another singer Supriyo, they sang it in an opera style. Mm-hmm. So they're singing the Indian raga in a totally opera style. And I don't know, but perhaps it might be the first time this was done. But I haven't checked anywhere else if people have done Indian raga in opera style. But whoever has heard Affinity, they just love it. So I'm very happy with the end result of that particular track.
Wow. So we'll listen closely to Affinity and realize that your wife, Madhumita Chatterjee, is quite well known, a bit of a star in Bollywood. So,
and I have to also acknowledge the tremendous mixing work done by multi-Grammy winner Lani Park in this song also. So when Lani heard it for the first time, he said, I'm going to take Madhumita's voice and I'm going to layer it into multiple layers so that there is a chorus effect as they are singing it. And I said, go ahead and do it. It sounds great. So you will see that there is a choral effect in the voice. And that's all coming from the ideas of Lani Park.
Great. We love Lani here. So let's listen. Okay, we're back. That was indeed gorgeous.
Thank
And
you.
I don't know, honestly, which of these tracks I like the most. I haven't picked a favorite yet, but that's definitely in the top two. So you and Medjimita, and you call her Mita, that's her nickname. You perform live sometimes around Los Angeles and in India as well when you're there. Will you be performing or doing anything in the next couple months around here?
Yes, so we are in discussions about a concert in October that will be in LA. There is also another possible concert in August in Maryland. We are still in discussions with that. And then, I have been approached by a former alumni student of mine who is in Bangkok, Thailand. And I have some official work there, but they're also planning a concert during that visit. So Madhumita and I will be traveling there. In India, we performed last year in December. We did a very big concert at one of the prestigious venues in Kolkata. And it was attended by a lot of musical dignitaries. So that was fantastic to perform in front of them. This year, we haven't had any confirmation yet. But maybe I have a close friend of mine who does a lot of event planning in Mumbai. And I think I'm going to talk to him about possibly doing this album in India, do live Memories of Empathy and Stairway to Nirvana. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Great. How do you find the different audiences in the US compared to Indian audiences?
So when Mita and I do more like Bollywood music here in the US, mostly in front of South Asian diaspora, I have to say that there has been a change in the audience in the sense that they just don't want to sit and enjoy anything. They want to get up and dance. And that's always not a good thing, because as an artist, there are some fantastic songs that are possibly not dance numbers that you would also like to perform, right? We would like to start with those songs, do the classics, and then get to the dance numbers. But these days, the audiences are so impatient that in the very second song, they want a dance song, So that I find strange.
I think that's a good problem, kind of, because I think we're the opposite here in the US. Some generations don't seem to know how to dance anymore.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about it, but I think, especially for Mita as a vocalist, though, when you're singing dance songs right from the beginning, there's a lot of pressure on the throat, so usually, we do it towards the end. And it is now what was interesting to us in India is when we were performing back in December in India, that's like a really serious music audience. They are all seated in the auditorium and they are appreciating every song they're doing. I found that difference quite interesting to me.
Fantastic. So you say that without empathy, society will likely become very selfish. And, that I agree completely. What are the small steps? You told us some of the ways that you help, but what are some of the small steps that we each can do in our lives, locally or even online to sort of stretch our empathetic muscles, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of different things we can do. And I think if we are visiting churches and homelessness and homeless people and all that, I think just being there and listening to them is a good start. Once you listen, what happened, what's going on, that conversation can lead to good things. I think, whenever we get a chance, we can go and serve food. That's something that will be important. Online, I think one has to be careful because, there are some really needy organizations and then there are a lot of scams. So you have to differentiate between, who do you want to help and how. But I think, the the current socio-economic situation in the US with the high inflation is affecting quite a few people. So whatever we can do, whether we go to the church, we go to the temple, we feed the homeless, or we donate money through different charities and organizations. That's
Well,
a good start. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even here with this community that we're in, we all have our communities, maybe our bubbles are even a little bit stronger after the pandemic, in keeping us in as well as others out, perhaps, but expressing within our communities, that we're caring, we're here to listen and here to help, and not just to hang out and be constantly pushing our messages out through social media, but make more of an effort to get out and visit your friend's page from that community and get to know them a little bit better. And you just never know what's going on with others, but I think expressing a willingness to know, to be expressing interest in how are you doing. I just wanted to drop by your page and say hi. I know I see you all the time on the Morning Breeze, but I also wanted to just know that you as an individual are doing okay. And I, appreciate being in this community with you. I think, getting back to expressing caring, would be.
I think the music fraternity is fantastic because whoever I have met in the last couple of years, they all seem to be very caring individuals, right? They're all doing their music. And I think the whole idea behind the album was that if I can create some, peaceful, calm, good music, then maybe when people listen to that, they can start to think about, what do they need to do to bring peace? And empathy is one of them, So that is really the main message. I want people to feel good about listening to this music. And in return, if they can contribute and help society, their neighbors in any way, that would be fantastic. And music is a fantastic medium to do that.
And it's something that's easy to give to others too, to send them a link to your track, to say, hey, I know you're having a tough day. This is something that's really uplifting. And it's true. I always say that it's the quickest way to get to that place where you can relax, you can breathe a little bit, and you can actually comprehend, okay, let's revisit this day. Let's look at the highlights instead of the lowlights. And, let me share it with someone else.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that was really one of the main purpose behind creating this album. And I have to acknowledge two of my co-producers, David Vito Gregoli, a fantastic musician. I worked with Vito for the first time. I believe Vito was brought to my attention by you and Suzanne. And then, of course, my other person is Sanjay Das from India. Both of them collaborated with me on this album. So whatever
We've
this
got
album
the East and the West coming together beautifully.
Yeah.
In this fusion.
That was also my purpose, to bring the best of Indian music with the Western jazz and fusion. And I have to mention that the last track, which is titled World of Empathy, I was very lucky to get Louis Banks, who may not be a very big name in the West, but he's the god of Indian jazz. He performs with Zakir Hussain and John McLaughlin and others. So he agreed and he played the piano on that jazz track. So I think you will like that track. So World of Empathy is the last track on the album. And super happy that Louis Banks was part of this album.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It's a beautiful track. And I think that we should listen first. Let's go out on that later, but let's listen to Have and Have Nots.
सद्गमया तमसोमा ज्योतिर्गमया मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमया असतोमा सद्गमया तुम्हारे पास बहुत कुछ है मगर मेरी किस्मत देखो जिंदगी में तो चाहा था इश्क मगर आंसू और गम सियों तुम्हारे पास
Okay. Beautiful. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, this was the first track in the album that I actually composed. This is also the foundation is an Indian raga called Darbari. Darbari is an evening rag, is usually performed and played in the evening. The word Darbar is a courtyard. The story is that Mughal Emperor Akbar, who was a big connoisseur of music, he used to have evening courtyard music in his palaces. And Mia Tansen, who was a famous courtyard musician, and I'm talking about 1400, maybe 1500 that time. So he composed this evening rag. So that's why it's called Darbari. It came from the courtyard. And I just love the rag, the notes of the rag. So I took that as a composition and then I wrote the lyrics. And the lyrics is in Hindi, but essentially it says, I am praying to God every day that hopefully I will get a roof above my head and one bread to eat and some clothes to wear. So that's how the lyrics is. Meeta sang it and Shupriya did the classical vocals in this. But I think if you listen to the entire arrangement, it is very modern, and yet there's a lot of Indian fusion elements. So this is one of my favorite tracks in the album.
Yeah, that is one of that's the top two right there, those that I have. But again, the last is also special, very, very special. But before we get to World of Empathy, let's talk about, what your ultimate goal is for this album. I know that you'll be entering it in this year's Grammy Awards. I wish you luck on that, and it's very exciting. What else would you like to say about it, and what are you hoping people will hear when they listen in that regard?
So if I take a little step back, in 2021, I debuted my New Age album, Stairway to Nirvana. So, and I was very new in terms of, knowing the community and all that. Fast forward 2 years, I'm actually a voting member of the Grammys this year myself. So I'm part of the Recording Academy. And I think that in the 2 years, I have matured to make this album even better than my first one. So my ultimate goal is I want this album to reach as many people as I can, and hopefully all across the world. Nirvana did quite well. I got messages from Europe and Australia and other places. I'm hoping that this will reach out even further. As you said, yes, we will try to submit it for the Grammys. And I just want people to like this music. That's all. I don't have, any other. Yeah.
Good. Well, we're having a great reaction to it, as you said, everywhere. I know it's being picked up at radio, and we've already gotten some stellar reviews for it. So congratulations. And again, I wish you the best with this year's Grammys in the New Age category. This would be correct.
We'll submit for New Age, yeah.
Great. Okay. Any other messages before we take a listen to World of Empathy?
My parting message will be that I think the biggest award for an artist is audience appreciation. So as long as people like it and write to me and give me feedback, that's all I care about, and I'm happy to continue to work and do even better music in the future.
That's beautiful. Well, absolutely. We will hope that people will leave comments below and tell us which was their favorite, and maybe how they're using this music in their life to open their hearts and to remember their empathy and the importance in their lives.
Very well said, yeah.
This is Memories of Empathy, the album by Samir Bodhi. And now we'll listen to World of Empathy, and wish you a beautiful day.
All right. Thank you, Beth. Really pleasure to be here with you today.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.